Welcome to an episode of Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript. A little bit different timing than usual compared to our Thursday evening live coding sessions, but today is going to be an afternoon of debugging and fixing what we started on Thursday. So if you didn't tune in on Thursday, we were just basically coding up our backend for our cores adder server, essentially, for our Filtrify photo app that we've been building. And at the end of the stream, it was going pretty well, but then at the end of the stream we ran into a roadblock and wasn't quite able to figure it out. But I did figure it out, and we're gonna do a little bit of a live stream right now so we can correct it and then possibly get it deployed to Now.sh. So it's actually pretty quick fix. So when I was talking about the middlewares and the implied parameter without like the route being passed in, that works just fine. So like for instance, this error handling, if we look at this right here, app.use, it doesn't have a specified route or anything like that. It's just kind of like a catch-all. So that works because it's a middleware. But for if we look at the actual route just above it, you can see that we're trying to do the same thing with just doing like an implicit route, but that is not gonna work and it's giving us issues. So what we want to do is just, in fact, the simple fix is just in fact add back in our wildcard. Oops, goodness. So the asterisks as the first parameter. So inside quotes, that means any request or any route that gets passed through beyond the slash or the favicon.ico will go through this route right here. And then we process it. So if you remember, we're taking the URL, taking it out of the request object path property, and then we have a little error in case that it is not a valid URL. We just generate a little bit of an error and we check with Joshua Ferris's package on if it's a valid URL. If it's valid, we send it off with a request, a GET request to the URL specified, and then pipe that response back into our response object and send it back to the front end. And if there's an error in that process, then it'll send, it'll call next with the error that's provided. Otherwise, if it's not a valid URL, we will send call next and send our error through it right here. Pretty simple, straightforward thing. So I think that's going to be all that we need to do to get it running. And then I just want to make sure that we bring this app.use cores adder middleware. We're going to bring it above the other routes, just so we have that being added to everything implicitly without any avail. And then one last thing I want to do really quick is instead of res.send, we just want to change this to res.json. Let's just before we do that, let's spin up our server and see what we're sitting with. So npm run dev, and that will start node-mon for us. Alright, cool. So let's go to that address again and see what that gives us. So we have that. I just want to try and change it to JSON. Alright, so a little bit different. I guess let's actually probably keep it with send because that looks a little neater. Just like that. Cool. You can see the difference. This is just rendering out text. It's just sending text, plain text to the front end. And with JSON, it's sending back JSON available to check out. Alright, cool. Now, well, alright, one last thing. I just want to make sure we have our semicolon after our host variable declaration. I think that will be all that we need to do in order to get this app back up and running. So, let's see. Let's go to our front end and see what's happening with that. So we have this running at localhost port 1337, and if we bring in, let's see, Filtrify photo, just like that. All right, so we have our backend local constant set to our localhost as well. And we were getting stuck on what we were trying to do here, and basically this should all be accurate, this all should be right, so we're just basically building a different URL with the URL we pass in from our input, our image loader component, and then the cores adder proxy server that we're putting on top of that. Alright, so let's bring up this server, or our front end, and see what happens here. So npm run serve. Let that build up for just a second. Okay, now that we have our app front end up and running, let's go and navigate to the web address. Bring it over to this page so we can all see it. Alright, so if our Filtrify photo cores adder backend is working now the way it should, when we load in one of those cores blocked images, it should load in automatically. And before it wasn't doing anything, we weren't getting any type of response, we weren't getting any error either, so it was kind of throwing me off. But figured it out, and should be able to see our expected or desired result now. Alright, so let's bring in an image, and just gotta pull up my clipboard. We will be pulling in this one, because that's one that has been being blocked with cores. Paste that in, hopefully it loads up. Let's see, take a look at the network, and it's in there. Cool, awesome. Alright, so let's take a look at this request object really quick, or response object as well. So you can see that right here we have our response headers being added for cores, and the image is working. So simple little fix. My bad on the goof up. I was confused on the backend Node.js syntax or the Express.js syntax of that, and but quick fix and we're back up and running. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do on this stream before we call it a day, because it's just a quick one, we just want to get this corrected and deployed. So let's head over to Now and we can take a look and see how we're going to work and get this deployed. Okay, so if we go to zeit.co/now, or if you just Google NowSH, it'll bring you, click on the first link, it'll bring you to this website, nifty neato Toledo one. And really what we want to do is we're just gonna log in, or if you haven't been to this website and use their service, it's free, you can join. I'm gonna go ahead and log in, and we can continue with GitHub. Just like this. And yes, that's me. Alright, cool. So you can see I have the first rendition of this backend that we built and for testing and beforehand. It's up and running and all that stuff, so we're gonna basically duplicate that for this version of the backend that we just created. So let's see. Before we go into this, let's make sure that all of our code up at GitHub is correct. And then, so we'll push our code to GitHub, and so make sure everything is as current as possible. And it looks like Joshua in the chat was making a comment. As a note, the load speed is not slowed too much by the proxy, but by personal PC speed, personal internet PC speed. And yeah, so you can see that it took a second to load. Basically, my download speed is not the best because we use city Wi-Fi. If you are familiar with the channel at all, you know that I battle with constant issues with down and upload speeds from city Wi-Fi, so that is why the image takes so long to load up. But if you have a strong and connected signal and you're not streaming a bunch of information up and you're not downloading a bunch of stuff at the same time, then it should load in pretty quickly. So thanks for that pointer, Joshua. Okay, so let's just head to the back end really quick, and we can open up a new terminal window and just push this code really quick. So you can say git add all, git commit -m for message, and it is going to be update, or we could say fix. Actually, fix. And we fix the catch route, I guess you could say, cores added catch route. Alright, cool. Git push. And just like that. Cool. Okay, so now that we have our backend pushed properly, let's now we can go back to Now.sh. Alright, so what do we want to do when we're in here? Okay, so we'll go, when we're logged in and everything, we're authorized with GitHub. You want to make sure that you connect GitHub on GitHub's end as well. So we can just say new project. And let's see, so your GitHub account is connected to RabbitWerks JavaScript on Now. To deploy a repository, create a Now.json in your repository and push and commit to trigger the deployment. You'll see the deployment status on GitHub and Site dashboard. So what we're going to do is Joshua has a nice little basic template for the Now.sh, NowSH.json file, or so it's just called the Now.json file for basic deployment. So we're going to take from that, and we can just kind of like basically walk through what it means. And according to Now, all you need is essentially just that, just a Now.json file, and it can even contain just like an empty object, apparently, according to the documentation, and it'll still deploy without any issues. But I was having some issues, so we needed to provide some parameters to it. So let's pull those up really quick. So just say open file. And then right here, we'll just open it from the other one. Okay, so it's just a small JSON file, and basically it's got a name that we're setting for Filtrify Photo Backend. Alias is the website that we wanted, the web address that we wanted to be aliased at. And then the builds, we're using the second version of their API. The build is source. It tells us the source where the index.js or the app entry point is, and then we're going to use basically what type of application it is. So it's we're going to be we need a Node server. So if you look down here, you can see they have a couple of different templates that you can choose from. Basically, we're just telling Now that we need their Node server to start with. And then the routes is just source, and then anything that gets triggered at, or that gets pinged to this server will go through and fall back to the index.js. So pretty simple. And so instead of typing this all out, we're just gonna copy it, and just what I can do is paste it in the chat if you want to copy it into your project for deployment, and you just need to change the name and alias, pretty much the name and the alias to whatever you're calling your project, but just a quick way to do it. And so let's see. Let's make sure this works first so we can close this out. We don't need any of this stuff open anymore. And if we go into our file explorer, and we can come into our root directory, so inside, not in the source folder, but outside the source folder in our Filtrify Photo Backend folder. Same root level that we have our package.json in, we're going to add a new file, and it will be called Now.sh or Now.json, just like that. And the only thing we need to do is just paste our code in from the other file, just like that, and then I will send that off to the chat as well. So if you just want to, actually we won't be able to send that in the chat. I'll post it as a comment. It's too big for the chat. And we could probably make up a quick gist to hold that, but it's pretty standard. All you need is the name and the alias. You can just probably type it up yourself too. But I will post it as a comment after the stream. So yeah. Okay, so now that we have our Now.json file in there, we need to push that up to our remote GitHub repository and see what happens. And according to this, that should be all that we need to do. Let's change up our names though, so we don't have any namespace collisions with our other one, just for whatever reason. I think it still prefixes it with some sort of like ID tag to it, but just for the sake of simplicity, because we're calling it FP Backend, we're going to change all this to that as well. Yeah, just one dash. Alright, cool. So just like that, and this should be all we need to do, and what we can do is add it, git commit -m, and then we're going to say added Now.sh deployment JSON file, and if we say git push, we'll see what happens. Alright, just like that. Let's see. Let's head back to the dashboard and see if that did anything. Might take a second for it to trigger. Oh, there we go. It's automatic, and if we open that up, let's take a look at it and see. You can see that we have our deployment and what branch it's being deployed on, and then the state of it. So yellow means initializing, we open it up and take a look at it. All right, and then green means good to go. So you can see it gives us our alias with the, looks like the get branch as well. Oh, there we go. So we have our alias now made. So we have our get branch, alias apparently, and then the alias that we provided to it. So if we click that, we should have it. Hello from the Filtrify backend. Neat. Cool. Alright, so now let's take this and test out our live deployed CORS adder proxy server with an image. Okay, so instead of pinging localhost, now we're gonna take this route right here, the route that it gave, or the web address that it gave us, or that we provided to it, and we'll go inside of our index. Oh, actually not in this project, but if we minimize the backend, go into the front end, and right here on our backend local, we can actually make sure we have that on there. Let's actually just comment that out for right now, and then when we go through next Thursday and go through and refactor and clean up code, we can take it out. But for now, we can just keep it in there for testing purposes in case we need to have it in there again. So we'll say const CORS proxy equals a string, and that's going to have our link in it just like that. And now come down here and change the string template for our loaded image.source. That's where we're setting the initial URL for the image, and that's going to transfer to the rest of our app with the proxy image address as well, just by setting it in this loaded image.source equals the event.target.value from the image loader component. So this thing plus our CORS proxy. So let's see if this works. All right, so we have, this is our local server. We need to make sure we change out our variable to CORS proxy, just like that. In the moment of truth, let's bring in that image again, and oops, not that. All right, and maybe we got an error. Oh. So I think this is what we need to take a look at a little bit closer, because I think Now.sh is adjusting our link. Let me take a look. It says that it has the, let's take a look at the image really quick. I don't have the image. Alright, so we were running into issues with the deployed version of Now.sh. It was like sanitizing our link, or our original URL. So we had to write just a little bit of a script, a little bit of a fixing function to make that work. And I believe that's what's happening in this situation as well. So if we take, let me see. Okay, so Joshua was saying if we check the now logs, we'll see the error. So let's go over there and take a look. Just come in here. Yeah. And where is it? Logs. Source. Okay. Requested ID, requested ID. Okay, so you can see all of the logs from our server in here. It's got dependencies done. So at this point here is where we start using it. Where was I just at? Logs. No logs to show for the output. Let's see. Alright, so Joshua was saying that if we log the received URL and redeploy it, you'll see it. Okay. So let's try and just say console.log. Okay, let's see. Loaded image.source. Let's see what that gives us. Bring in an image again. Okay, so we have trying to find it. I can't see it. Well, it looks like we have Vanil Vasani from the other night joining us. Thank you for checking out the stream in this afternoon. How you doing today? I hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you again. I'm just struggling like usual, so don't mind me. I'm trying to figure out where I can see what's going on with this, because I mean, on the back end. Oh, okay. Let's see.
This is my first time.
So, let's go to... We're on the back end, and if we say... Should we do it right here inside the get, inside the route? If you log the rec.path, it will show the problem. Alright, so console.log rec.path. We're gonna try it there. Send over a request. Let's go back to... You want us to, since we have to redeploy this in order to get the error to pop because it's happening on Now's end, is this, Joshua, is this the right spot that you want us to log it? Line 19. Alright, cool. So yeah, it looks like that's accurate. Alright, so we just need to push this up to GitHub and it will redeploy automatically. So git add all git commit -m fix URL. It's not a fix, I guess it's a debug URL issue. Alright. Git push. Alright, we can watch this deploy again. In just a second here. Alright, so let's see if this has... Alright, so looks like it finished deploying. Oh, that's the build log. Okay, let's see. there we go. Alright, so it just finished now. And now let's take a look, and if we send a request over, let's figure out where we can see it at. It'll probably show up in the data, it'll probably show up in the logs. I wonder if we need to use this other alias, because before this one wasn't working for me, so I just want to try this really quick as well. Alright, so I really wish my clipboard was working right now. I didn't have to manually click everything. Okay, so let me change out just want to change out the front end address really quick. Okay, so you can see it right here. Yeah, so this is the issue that we're running into. So if you look down here, I don't know if you can see that very well. We'll zoom in. Okay, so you can see that this is our image, or this is the proxied image that we're sending over to our backend server, and the reason why it's breaking is it's being sanitized and it's getting this slash removed, or I think it's being escaped actually. So we need to write a little bit of code on our backend to fix that, and it should be pretty straightforward. So we just need to basically, what we need to do is we need to separate the protocol and we need to separate the image link, and then we're gonna manually add in that. If it's missing a slash, or if it's not, we'll just return the URL. So pretty simple function. Let's get that finished up, and then we'll be able to get our processed and finished result. Okay. So for this function, we can just put it up right above our, before we start writing our app code. So we'll just say const repair URL. And so just kind of like a nutshell of what we're doing. In a nutshell of what we're doing is we're just fixing the deployment of our backend from previous live stream, and in doing so we're just creating basically just making sure that the proxied image link gets proxied correctly and sent back to our front end so we can use it in our photo filtering app. It's basically to alleviate issues with cores. So really quick, I can demonstrate what that would look like without, or I can just demonstrate the error that we're fixing that we come across with this application. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just take out this cores proxy variable. So we're just getting the event target value, and so if we refresh this, and so this is running on our local host, but it doesn't matter. Either way, it would still give us this error, and if we bring in that image, you can see that it is breaking the image, and it is giving us an error. It says access to image, the image URL from origin localhost has been blocked by cores policy. No access control allow origin header is present on the requested resource, and it breaks our app. So that's no good. So this is what we're building this backend for. Basically, it's gonna add those headers into our response object so we can use it in use the images and hosted assets from other servers in our app on our server. And if that doesn't make much sense, then you're not alone, because it is kind of confusing, especially when you start working with front end and back end stuff. So this is just kind of a simple proxy server that we built that'll take this image link that we have, and it'll send it over to our back end, and it will add in the cores headers, send off, and fetch the asset and bring it back and send it back to our front end. Just a proxy server essentially. So, and if we bring this back in, it's still not going to work because we have to finish writing our repair script, repair URI script, or function. But once that's finished and deployed, then we'll demonstrate it again with the same image link and show that it works. Okay, so before we went on that tangent really quick, we were just what we're fixing with this repair URL function is we're gonna make sure that this doesn't happen right here. Alright, so const repair URL is a function that's gonna take in the URL and it will do some stuff. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to check if it contains the proper :/ or if it just contains the : /. So we'll say if url.includes, and that's basically just a higher order function method, or not a higher order function method, but a string method, just a method on here. Let's see, JS includes method. Alright, so it's an array and a string method as well. So basically it just looks through what we pass it in, and if it, or what we are calling it on, and if it finds it, either returns true or it returns false. So if includes dots or : oops, don't want to do that, : just like that, and does not include url.includes. So if it doesn't have that, then we will repair it. Else we will return, since it doesn't need to be repaired, we will just return the URL, just like that. Alright, so inside of this if statement, if it returns true, oh, good question. So if you want to take a look at the headers, we can just see what we're setting. So it's actually in this cores adder middleware, and it just basically takes our request, any type of request that we make, and it passes it through this function right here, and it basically sets the response headers. So res.header sets access control allow origin to, and then where it's allowed, or where, from what sources. So all sources, because we're using the wildcard route or wildcard parameter. And then the second header we set is the access control allow headers, and it's allowing origin, x requested with, content type, and then the accept headers. And then we just call next to make it pass on to the next function in our app. So these are the two headers that we need. Basically, the main one that gives us what we need is this access control allow origin with the, so it gives us, basically we can say from any outside source we can use, we have access to it. Alright, cool. And those are basically the headers that we add to it, and that's all we need to make it properly load in our front end. Okay, so back to the repair URL. First thing we want to do is we're going to say url.split. Okay, so we can say const protocol equals URL.split, and then we will pass in, we're splitting it on the colon, and then we want to just get the first entry of that, just like that. And then we'll say const middle equals a string that just contains our slash, like that, and then const asset link, I'll just say asset equals the URL.split. Same thing, we're going to split it on the colon, and then we will just take the second entry of that. Alright, so if we say console.log, and we'll say protocol middle and asset, just like that, we'll see what those give us. And we don't actually need to console log the protocol or the middle, because we know what we know what that is, but that's all right. So let's head back to our local backend server, because we want to test this function out really quick. And okay, so now that we have that, we need to include this function in our chain of events or whatever that's going to be happening. So what we'll say is, inside this get request right here, or app.get wildcard route, we want to repair it. So we can actually just pass in this rec.path. We'll just pass it into the repair URI function, or URL function. So just wrap that in a set of parentheses, and then we can type in repair URL, just like that. So const URL equals repair URL, that gets the rec.path.substring minus substring passed into it. And that should be all that we need to do. If we send a request to this now from our front end, so our local host, and let's go to the front end and update, or just pull in our local dev server address for our backend. So we can let's just call it the same thing. So we'll just say cores proxy, just like that. We need to have one commented out, otherwise it will error out. Oops, not that. Undo proxy. Alright, uncomment that, comment this one out quick before it breaks, and let's give it a shot. So if we have, and take a look at our console right here, for our backend, we should be able to see this, what we're console logging for our repair URL function. And let's just see. Bring it to want to see my interesting. Oh, I don't think this is gonna work locally with this setup, because it doesn't have it's not taking it out. Alright, so let me just take a look before we go any further. I'm going to take a look at my... Okay, so here is this. Close this window out. I just want to bring it in so we have a reference point. This is the original repair URI. function that we wrote for the other one. Okay, so yeah, let's try it with this one really quick. I think it's just because we're local and it only works or only fixes it properly when it's deployed. But we'll see. Okay, so we don't have an error, so okay, now it's running, it's loading. Okay, so it's just returning that console.log rec.path thing right here. We don't want that. And it's a valid URL, it's not a broken URL, so it's just going to return it, it's not going to fix it. But, so the function is running. I think we just need to return. Okay, so inside of our original one, we won't, well, since we know that that's working, we can just comment that out. But inside the repair URL function that we just wrote, we can take in return. We can say protocol plus middle plus asset, just like that. And so that should give us what we need, and then if we wanted to shorten it up, we can actually just take all of this stuff and just turn it into a simple string string template like this, template string. So we'll just do that really quick after all. We can see the difference, so comment this out. It's basically doing the same thing. It's returning the first entry of the URI that we split, and we need to just change it to URL because we're using L in this. Okay, so splits the URL, takes the first iteration, puts a :/ in between it, and then takes the second entry of that URL and smushes it all together. You have done include instead of includes. Oh, good catch, nice catch. So we do need to make sure that that's in there, so types includes properly. And we can delete this code right here. We don't need that, so we can have the reference working. And then we just need to change that to URL again, just like that. Should be all we need to get this up and running for our development server, or deployed server, sorry. And alright, so let's just go ahead and delete this. We don't need that anymore because we're just doing it all in one return statement as a string template. And cool. I mean, we could turn this into like a ternary, but we're not going to go that far because it's pretty much as it is right now. Good enough. Alright, so the last thing we need to do to get this working on our front backend, so if we our deployed backend, so we can see if it's running, is push it to GitHub and give it a test. Alright, so git add all, git commit -m, it's gonna be fix repair URL function added to fix deploy sanitization. There we go. Something like that. I'm not sure how you spell it. That's alright. Alright, git push. And now, while that's doing its thing, you can take a look at it and just head to our dashboard for it. While that's deploying, we can we don't want this open. We will go to our front end and just get ready to fix or change out our back end. or the backend remote repository server deployed thing that we're saying. Okay. So it's pushing it right now. Just waiting for it to click on. And then we'll see. Alright, cool. So it is going still. Initializing. And then it'll take our alias and bring it from our old deployment to our new deployment. So just like that, it should be live. And now we should be able to go to our local host for our front end and try it out against our deployed backend. So let's just bring in an image. Oh, not that. That's not a valid image. Select all, delete. Oops. There we go. Bring this one in. Copy. And if it works, there we go. Cool. And the image is loaded in there, and so you can see that it's being proxied correctly now. And we can take a look at the logs, but actually I think we got rid of that. Yeah, we got rid of the console log. So, yeah, I mean, basically what it's doing is it's just fixing our backend, our link that we URL that we provided it, and it's not sanitizing it anymore. So it's a correct or a properly formatted link that we're passing in, URL. All right, cool. So last thing we're gonna do is, since we have this backend up and running properly, we're gonna deploy our updated front end to Netlify, and we'll call it a night, or call it a session. All right, so we can minimize this. Let's open up this. Open up a new tab, new terminal tab. All right, so let's see. Don't want this in there because this.image.source is the correct one that we want. We don't need to put that inside of a string template either. Let's make sure that that's correct. Alright, cool. Image loader, display image, or display container. We're gonna go through and delete all of this. This is all dead code, essentially. So I just wanted to make sure that nothing was breaking it on this end. So git add all, and we will just push git commit -m update changed out backend URL for deployed backend, just like that. And if we push it, now it should automatically deploy on Netlify. Let's head over there really quick and see what's going on. And then we're using Netlify for the front end to deploy, and then we're using Now.sh or Now.sh to deploy the back end. Netlify is really good for one-click hosting or deploying of front-end websites, front-end projects. You can integrate with Git. Now.sh is more geared for the server-side deployments and whatnot. So we're using those in conjunction with each other to get both of these hosted. Alright, so let's see where we at here. If we click in our determined hawking, I think that's it. And updated, so it's building our new thing. It's building our new version of our repository, and you can see that it just finished and it published it. So if we go to this website, we should have our front end app. And the moment of truth is when we send this, or when we insert our image URL that gets blocked by cores. And if it loads in on this screen, then everything worked on our backend and everything is working all around. So final moment of truth, and we'll see what happens here. Paste that in, and there it is. Cool. So everything's working. We got our front end deployed and it's working properly. We got our back end deployed and it's proxying our images and adding our chorus headers that we need in order to use it in our server. And everything's working nice and dandy. So a couple of hiccups along the road, but I think for the most part it's been pretty good. I like it. Thank you so much, Joshua, for all your help throughout this project, and I really appreciate it. We probably wouldn't have been able to get nearly as far without the help that you've given us during it. Alright, so code is available to check out on GitHub. And let's see, we can just copy this into the chat. So there's the front end repository, and looks like Joshua was sharing the link to Now.sh and Netlify's websites, so you can go check them out if you want to take a look at what they offer for hosting. And I'm just going to share this one really quick as well. So the backend repository for the project, and that's everything that we need. And we're gonna call it a session with that figured out. 12.5 is officially complete, and so make sure we tune in to the final quote unquote. So our wrap up episode is gonna be this Thursday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're gonna finish up this project and we're gonna do some refactoring, some code cleanup, and just optimizing a little bit here and there. And yeah, so with all of that, then we'll probably be in a spot where we can call it good. And if you tuned in today, thank you so much for checking out another episode of Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript. And if you like the beats that we're listening to, you can check that out. The link is in the description. It's the RabbitWerks Code Beats Spotify playlist. And then yeah, really quick before we go, the cores error basically is, so when we get images, or if we have like an image that we want to use inside of our server, sometimes if it's hosted on other servers, sometimes those servers won't let us use it without having certain headers or permissions attached to our request, i.e. the cores headers. It basically just prevents cross-origin scripting attacks and hacking and malicious code to be executed remotely, stuff like that. It's all like a security feature that's in the browser and whatnot. So basically, it just kind of prevents people from getting complete access to assets on remote servers that aren't where they're at and whatnot, and it prevents communications and whatnot as by default, which you can set up with these cores, middlewares, and whatnot in order to work around that and to give you the permissions that you need, and while keeping the people and the requests and stuff that are malicious out. Kind of that is kind of it in a nutshell. Really quick, we can just take a look at the request one more time. And where is it? Let's just refresh this. We'll take a look at the request as it comes in. So none of these, but when we load in our image really quick, we'll take a look at the headers one more time before we go.
That you aren't doing it in just the same way as you're breathing without knowing how you breathe.
Alright, so you say it's pending. Now it's loading in. If we take a look at this, see it says the access control allow origin from all. It's basically giving us permission to use it anywhere, to all sources. That's not the origin. And then access control allow headers, it's basically, this is just some default ones that it looks for and needs in order to accept the core's policies as acceptable. I'm not 100% an expert on it, but there was a really good article on MDN actually that talked all about cores. So I will pull that up really quick. Yeah. So this article right here, which I will share in the chat as well, it's on the Mozilla Developer Network. It'll tell you everything that you need to know about cores and how to get around it and why it's in there in the first place. So go ahead and take a look at that. It'll give you a nice overview as well as go into depth about it. So cool. All right, so I think that's gonna be it. We're about an hour. We're just past over an hour. So without anything else, I just wanted to say thank you again for tuning into another episode of Live Coding with RabbitWerks JavaScript, and we will catch you next time. And have a great day, have a great night wherever the sun or moon is in the sky, where you're at. Have an awesome night, day, thing, other words and stuff. Alright, have a good night and stay awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.